Welcome to the Actually You Can podcast. I'm Miff Galloway, a performance coach passionate about supporting ambitious and high-performing women just like you who know they have untapped potential just waiting to be unleashed. If you're looking to massively up-level your performance in all areas of life, you've come to the right place. My goal on this podcast is to take you beneath the surface so you can connect with yourself on a deeper level while providing you with valuable insights and the tools necessary to navigate life's challenges and go after your goals with strength, clarity, and wisdom. If you're ready to uncover the truth which lies underneath so you can recognize your powerful feminine leadership style, pursue your goals unapologetically, and thrive in every aspect of your life, hit the follow button and get ready to explore the incredible possibilities that lie within you. Together, we'll uncover your next steps in achieving peak performance, because actually, you can. Welcome to another episode of Actually, You Can. Today, we're diving into the topic that impacts millions of women but is rarely talked about openly, and that is PMDD, or premenstrual dysphoric disorder. I've never actually had to say that out loud, so I hope I got that right. I'm joined by the incredible Chloe Jimenez-Peters, a PMDD and perimenopause therapist and narcissistic abuse specialist. Chloe's transformative work combines rapid transformational hypnotherapy and trauma-informed coaching to help women break free from emotional pain, heal toxic patterns, and thrive with purpose. In this episode, we'll explore the subconscious roots of PMDD, how it shows up as depression, anxiety, and rage, and most importantly, how healing these triggers can unlock untapped potential and a life of true alignment. If you've ever felt trapped by emotional cycles or longed for deeper self-love and inner peace, this conversation is for you. Let's get into it. Welcome to the show, Chloe. It's so wonderful to have you here today.
Thank you, Miff. It's really cool to be here.
And so PMDD, I would love for you to first of all describe what this actually is, because I've heard about it in a number of different cases. More often, I hear it as another way to just explain why women are so moody and so temperamental around that period. And I'm like, I feel like that is just a really superficial way to describe something, which is actually really impactful for women. So over to you.
So PMDD is really like PMS on steroids. Women, I mean, it's different for everybody. You know, for some people it's a few days, for some people it's 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and it's a cluster of symptoms. So what's really typical is the suicide ideation. I just don't want to be here. Are rageful, anxiety. They have anxiety. They're depressed. They isolate, their relationships don't feel safe. They question their relationships, whether it's toxic or not. And it just feels like they've been hijacked. They're going crazy and they're spiraling. And it's just cyclical. It comes on with the shift in hormones, with the start of the luteal phase, And then normally after they finish bleeding, it will stop, and they have a window of respite from this craziness, and then it comes again. So yeah, nice.
And so what do you think is the biggest misconception about it?
I think the biggest misconception is that you are faulty, that you are a write-off, that you have a genetic defect, that you have a chemical imbalance.
And I'm really interested in your approach. You talk a lot about the subconscious mind. What role does the subconscious mind play in the symptoms of PMDD? And how does it addressing this lead to real transformation?
Yeah, so it's really important to understand that the subconscious mind is being programmed from the second, well, we know at least the second trimester of pregnancy. And by the time you're 7, you have programmed 95% of your beliefs. And you have acquired those beliefs without the conscious critical factor, the conscious logical mind having been formed yet. You're acquiring these beliefs in theta brain state. Children are in hypnosis, so they just absorb things. And they're misperceptions of a child who is dependent, helpless, totally dependent on their caregiver. They can't survive without their caregiver. So when their emotional needs are not met or they experience trauma, then they feel extremely overwhelmed and have this cognitive dissonance, this confusion, and this is where they lay down beliefs. And their lies, these beliefs, a lot of them, that are creating then the symptoms in adulthood, because what happens is these beliefs create our perception. And they create that it's like this perception of the lenses through which we see ourselves and the world around us. And so, for instance, so I work with the root cause of each symptom. So when we work with the root cause of depression, for example, which is the ultimate shutdown, it's like, if we want to talk about the stress responses, you've got fight or flight, which is like, like you're creating the biology of courage. Your nervous system is perceiving that you are in danger, and it will it will come to protect you. It will put all the blood and the nutrients towards your muscles, away from your sex organs, away from your intestines. It's like, let's get ready to run for our lives. And here's where you find symptoms like anxiety, anger. And then when we reach that threshold of fight or flight, our body has to shut us down and we go into freeze. And this is where we find depression and dissociation, chronic fatigue. And so PMDD is a cluster of these symptoms. And when I work with people, I tend to start off with the freeze response symptoms. And we go in for the first transformational hypnotherapy session, let's say for depression, want to move them out of the freeze response, which is the ultimate survival, the ultimate shutdown. And this is the thing, your body is in a state of survival. Chronic stress responses you're just oscillating between fight or flight and freeze. And it's not safe to be in, it's physiologically damaging for all of those nutrients in the blood to be moved away from vital organs so that you can, prepare to run for your life or like play dead, right? So this is the thing, the beliefs, the trauma imprints, the limiting beliefs are creating our perception. And in childhood, also the nervous system is being shaped. I also work with the polyvagal tools to reshape the nervous system because it was shaped according to what we were experiencing in childhood. So I use the transformational hypnotherapy to go to the root cause of the symptoms. We pinpoint the beliefs. We go back. We use regression to really go back and see how that child felt and pinpoint the beliefs. And then we use a number of tools. I mean, it's a 2-hour session. Each session is a 2-hour session in hypnotic brain states. We pinpoint those beliefs and then we reframe them and transform the blueprint from which you are manifesting everything in your life and see, the lenses through which you are seeing life and yourself.
And you've articulated that approach so eloquently. And I've personally had experience with hypnotherapy before, and I can speak to the incredible transformations that occur because of it. Why do you think we have these modalities such as hypnotherapy that can really support and lead to true transformation, yet for conditions like PMDD, it's like take painkillers or wear a heat pack and you'll be fine in a few days once you start your bleed? Why do you think that we're looking at this way of treatment as mainstream treatment as opposed to hypnotherapy as common treatment for this?
Yeah, I mean, this is the problem with most diseases, most illnesses, like 95% of illnesses are actually stress related. We're sending our body out of physiological whack. And of course, certain genes are switched on and off, upregulated, downregulated. Our hormones, as a result of the stress responses, are interrupted. They're altered because of the stress response. We're adapting to the environment, we're adapting to the response. And so different pathways are being activated. And this is where people go, oh, well, you've got an imbalance. Well, hang on, let's go back and find why there's pathways being activated way back. So traditional medicine really focuses on attenuating symptoms and using pharmaceuticals to just kind of attenuate the symptom. But then you'll find that, well, that pharmaceutical is going to give me another symptom. It's the side effect. And I'll have to go in and get another. And that's kind of, and I think people are waking up. There's a huge awakening. And I think people are realizing hang on, we're incredibly intelligent beings. If a plant, when it's missing a nutrient, can turn yellow in order to survive, and like say, hey, I'm not well, and it can, and, it's an adaptation to its environment, then come on, we're hugely intelligent beings. Like, these symptoms are just signs of a cause that, we've got to get curious with, we've got to look at. And it's a human phenomenon, this limiting belief thing. And, 1 in 4 or 1 in 5 of us is a highly sensitive being. And so when you're a highly sensitive person, which is genetic, there are loads of studies on it about this highly sensitive gene. It goes across over 100 species, even fruit flies. And, there's pros and cons to being both, but what that means, it means that you process things deeply. And just understanding yourself, realizing that you are a highly sensitive being is so validating, and it explains a lot from your childhood. When I learned about it, I just actually released a load of tears. I understood why I was always the last child in the dining room, or I needed longer in exams. I was always such a deep thinker. It's really validating just knowing that. And the people I work with tend to be that way. When you are that way, you are much more likely to acquire depression, PMDD, any of these trauma-based diseases, let's call them. I mean, it's dis-ease in your body because you are activating pathways that are knocking things out of whack, for better expression, for want of a better expression. So, I think people are realizing that there must be more to life. And there's a big, people are getting curious. People are looking for the mind, body, spirit, the holistic way, because why just numb? Women I've worked with have got, when you go to the doctors with PMDD, if the doctor knows what it is, because they don't all know what it is, and it's nothing, it's not the doctor's fault. I went to medical school. I understand what we're taught and who's funding the medical schools. I understand that. And we're just not taught it. And so what can they do? They can go, oh, you're feeling depressed. Let me give you an SSRI. Why don't you try birth control? And that might just help you with your cycle. And then when that doesn't work, okay, let's do a hysterectomy, which I find crazy, because as women, our hormones are the truth serum that are showing us what we need to transform, what we need to alchemize. They bring us, when we have that shift in our cycle, we naturally go into like this introspective mode. We go into like self-assessment mode, and we come very close and personal to those limiting beliefs, those trauma imprints that need looking at. And we are feeling that. We are not feeling safe. But it's showing us what we need to address, what we need to look at. It's like, hello, look at me. But because of the society we live in, we're like, oh, well, let's just put earplugs in. And the women that I work with don't want to be on the antidepressants because, well, it kills their sex drive, for one, and they're just numbed out. They don't like the side effects because, yeah, they're highly sensitive people who are affected by pharmaceuticals in a very big way. It doesn't suit them. So, yeah, really, it's really interesting. It opens a whole new dimension to us women living in a very masculine, patriarchal world that doesn't honor our cyclical needs. Like, I didn't find out about, our cycle, that we have a spring, summer, autumn, winter of our cycle, and that we, not, this is the stuff we should be taught in school, and about our nervous system and about how to control our thoughts. This stuff I teach my clients should be on the school curriculum. It's basic stuff about how your organism works. So just understanding it's okay that in the autumn, you kind of need to slow down, and we need to honor that. And it's like just reframing it and realizing, what, your hormones are your innate wisdom as a woman. Why would you want to remove that? Like, it's showing you stuff that you need to transform in order to expand your potential, because you're meant for more.
Oh my God, even just considering hormones is a source of your innate wisdom would be transformational. Like, I know, especially leading up to my period, I might be feeling a little bit like, I don't want to go do much. I just want to stay home and all that sort of stuff. And just instead of going, oh, that's so bad. And it's going to happen every 3 or so weeks, just acknowledging like, hey, what comes up for me during this time? Like an opportunity to access the deeper emotions during that time instead of just looking forward to it going, I wonder what's going to come up this time round. What's still there that I can look at? And then that would be incredible.
And just leaning in with curiosity, with empathy, without judging yourself or hating on yourself, because actually that's what the problem is. You are rejecting yourself because you've taken on a belief as a child. I'm bad, I'm wrong, I'm not enough, I don't matter, my feelings don't matter, I'm not worthy of being cared for, what I want is not available to me. All of this stuff behind these symptoms. And it's like, rah, look at me. And I'm going to get louder and louder until you look at me, because, you're meant for more. You don't have to live like this. It's like it's a classroom of children. They're going to get louder and louder and louder. Your feelings just want to be felt. But we hate on ourselves and we reject ourselves more. And then those become a self-fulfilling prophecy. That's the thing. The beliefs become a self-fulfilling prophecy. So you've got to do something.
Yeah, and I like what you mentioned before. Until just having this conversation with you, I didn't have this perspective, and a lot of people don't. And so this time rolls around, and you're feeling, and people say, "I don't feel myself." And I don't. Bless my husband was like, "I feel like we're really good for like 3 weeks, and then you have a week where you just like it's hard to be around you sometimes." And I'm like, I think that's just like the cyclical nature of my menstrual cycle. But I was also like, it's there's clearly something there. You shouldn't feel bad about that week where you just don't feel yourself. I think that's probably the narrative I'm trying to hit home here. Is it's just part of us. It's just going. You shouldn't feel shameful or feel like you should hide yourself from the world during this time. Like I think it's horrible.
Yeah, well, it's a part. It's not you. It's a protect
Mm.
part, right? Like the anger is a protector part, and we do the parts therapy and give the part a voice. Say, what are you trying to do for me? What have you been doing for me all of these years? Well, I'm protecting you. I'm keeping people away from you, um, because of the beliefs that you've got. And so there are all these parts that are showing you, what's this that I've picked up? And
Mm.
got to lean into it and be curious and really like you're nurturing your inner child, like you've just been given this newborn baby. And what we do is we just abuse ourselves, really, when you look at it. It's the self-talk is, that was the biggest thing for me, I think, actually just realizing the importance of self-talk. And just having a gatekeeper in my mind and thinking, you've got to speak to yourself like you're speaking to a little baby, because you actually speak to yourself like you wouldn't even speak to your worst enemy, someone you didn't like. It's crazy. So that's the real game changer, just being really gentle with yourself and changing your self-talk.
And you touched briefly just on your personal experience, but I'd love to learn more if you don't mind sharing. How did you get into this sort of work? Like you mentioned, you went to medical school, and then now you're doing this. How
Yeah.
did we end up here?
So I was diagnosed with chronic fatigue at 14 and in clinical depression at 17 and put on antidepressants. I didn't have no, like, people say, oh, what do you have to be depressed about? And I was like, well, I don't know. If I knew, I wouldn't be depressed, right? Like,
Exactly.
um, but I was a highly sensitive child whose parents had a messy divorce. And now I understand, and also just the projection of, your parents are doing their best. Nobody wants to mess up their kid. We're all doing our best, and my dad with um, his fears of failure, he would, well, when you grow up, you'll be a doctor or a lawyer. And my interpretation as a little child was, wrong with me? Like, why is my sister allowed to be an actress and I've got to be a doctor or a lawyer? There must be something wrong with me. And it was that belief at the core of the depression. It's complete self-rejection that was just like putting me into like freeze response. What I want doesn't matter. I have no choice. Like, what's the point? And it was totally unconscious. But once you make that conscious and you do the reframing, it's like, oh, it's gone. And it was just actually quite an innocuous event, just in childhood. So to go back to my journey, and then I did all the 11 years of university, and then I ended up with a childhood friend, and we had babies together. And in my third pregnancy, he left me for a girl half his age, um, a girl from work, and just abandoned ship. Then stopped sending child support. And I was just, for my whole pregnancy, just in a really heartbroken state. And I just was in denial. I was like, I just didn't want to believe it. I wanted to believe that it was a mini midlife crisis, that he'd come back. And it was just heartbreaking. I wasn't sleeping. I was obsessing over them and looking on social media where they were, what country they're in now. They were all over holidaying. And I just had this epiphany of, you're doing this to yourself because you actually have choice here, not to be going on these trains of thought. And then I looked at my two little boys and playing in the living room. They were 2 and 1, and they're just so precious and innocent. And I just was having all these horrible thoughts like, what the hell's going to become of my life? Like, who's going to want me with 3 babies? And as I had that thought, it triggered something inside me. I think, an inner child wound. I think that's what I felt, because my mom was a very young mom who maybe I felt like I was a burden to her happiness, because if I wasn't there, maybe she could have another chance, of meeting somebody. And in that moment, as I thought that, I was like, don't you dare. Don't you dare do that to these kids. And I could see this crossroads. I could see yeah, you carry on believing that and thinking like that, and these children are going to pick up beliefs about themselves and be burdened with stuff that's not even theirs. And then I could see, oh, but you could believe that the universe has an amazing plan for you, and that, um, you're a great package. And I chose that trajectory, and I went down I went down a rabbit hole of personal growth and studying the laws of the universe and the subconscious mind. And then I saw an advert for rapid transformational therapy. I saw Marissa Peer, and everything you said, it was like bing, 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 light bulbs going off in my head. And I was like, that's what I should have always been doing. This is what I should have always been doing, going to the root cause of pain, freeing people from pain. And then in my training, I watched a masterclass with one of the graduates who said, well, I healed my PMDD in my training. And I was like, oh, I had PMDD. That's what I had. Because I had all these different diagnoses. Never heard of PMDD. And then I just was like, right, I cannot be on this earth and not free people from PMDD, not wake them up, and not free people from depression. Like, this is ridiculous. I'm not having people just written off. You've got a chemical imbalance. That's it. No, we have one life. And you can do anything, but you've got to get the blueprint, the subconscious blueprint, to match what you intend to do.
That's an incredible story. I mean, that it's always hard hearing people going through hardship, and you don't wish that sort of pain on anyone. And it's so great to see that you took that as an opportunity to be like, actually, no, I have choice here. What am I going to do? And it's so beautiful to see that you're sharing this gift with the world, because I have no doubt that it's transforming the lives of many women out there. So thank you for pursuing your gift.
Thank you.
And so with the clients that you see who come to you with PMDD, what does that sort of session look like? Like, why are they coming to you? Are they at wit's end? They're trying anything, or tell me more about that.
Yes. So my program for anything like PMDD, or somebody comes to me with depression and anxiety, my program is an 8-week program. And within that 8-week program, we have 2 rapid transformational therapy sessions. Those are the transformational hypnotherapy sessions. And the reason it's 8 weeks is because after each session, you go away with a recording, just a 15-minute recording that you'll listen to when you go to bed, to rewire your mind with the new beliefs, to really cement those new neural pathways. And so in those 8 weeks, we're also learning metacognitive psychology. I mean, these are great in their own right, but we've clustered them all together in an 8-week program. Metacognitive psychology to get in control of your thoughts, the polyvagal tools to start learning tools, just really simple tools to reshape your nervous system, to tone the ventral vagus nerve, tools to get into your body, positive psychology, the rules of the mind, all of these really vital tools that really just become part of how you function, actually, and super transformative. So we do the subconscious work and the conscious work, and together it's a radical awakening, actually.
And so, I mean, I love this sort of work, and I have pictures in my mind of what a radical awakening would look like. But for the listeners on the show, what transformation could they expect if they suffer from symptoms of PMDD? What sort of a transformation could they expect after the 8 weeks?
Well, the idea is to be totally free of PMDD. That's the idea, and most of my women are. Some people might have some PMS, and it depends on. It really depends how invested you are and how much trauma you have to, like peel away, peel away, peel away. But those 8 weeks really is enough to get rid of all of your symptoms, most of your symptoms. Like the depression, the rage, the anxiety, and we'll go into these subconscious beliefs. People want freedom from the emotional turmoil that they go through. And what they actually get is a complete transformation of the blueprint from which they're manifesting. So then their relationships transform, they get a pay rise, or they decide, a lot of women, because I tend to work with a lot of doctors and nurses with PMD, because they're the sensitive empaths of the world. I work with creative people, the carers of society. They tend to be the ones that suffer with this stuff, the creatives and the empaths. And then I've had nurses and doctors then go on to study RTT because of the work we did, because oh my god, this is root cause resolution. And other people who in completely different industries before have realized their purpose. They're like, oh no, I no longer want to work in that bar. Now I'm going to set up my business and I'm going to be a garden architect. And they do. And it's like, because, that before the symptoms that they had, those beliefs that were creating the symptoms were things like, what I want doesn't matter. I don't matter. I have no choice in life. Or when you transform those for the opposite, new, empowering beliefs, everything changes. You start realizing, I validate me. What I want matters more than anything. Everything I desire is available to me. I'm worthy of being cared for. And I love, honor, and respect myself. And so you wouldn't accept anything less in life. So it changes everything, really. But you see, this is the beauty of the hormones. They're showing you what needs to be transformed. They're showing you with these symptoms. And then you just want freedom from the symptoms. You just want to be living in harmony and having a peace. And not have to track your cycle and have to cancel events and have to isolate from your family so that you don't hurt them. That's what they want. They can't imagine what's going to come as a side effect of the treatment. So that's really exciting. And that's why my program is called Wounds into Wings, because like anything is possible. Anything is possible.
I love that. And those transformations are incredible because it's not just treating the symptoms of PMDD too. Like when you relieve yourself from those symptoms, it transforms other areas of your life, like you mentioned, the pay rise or realizing what I do in life and all that sort of stuff. And I think there's going to be some listeners here that are like, well, I'm not sure if I have trauma or these beliefs that are holding me back. And I think it's important to remind people that you don't have to have a traumatic childhood to have childhood trauma. I mean, I was talking to one of my mentors and she was saying that the emotion of shame, for example, one of the first experiences we experience that as a child is when your parents are making eye contact with you and they look away first. They go, oh, they lost eye contact with me. Am I not good enough to have eye contact? And I'm sitting here like, oh my God, I've already like my 14-week-old daughter is already experiencing shame. Oh my God. We're all going to experience some form of childhood trauma. And I'm using air quotes here, no matter how good your childhood was, because of the way we interpreted something. What's your thoughts on that? Yeah.
Yeah, because they're misperceptions of a child, and the child saying, it's just a human phenomenon, and there's two types of trauma. I don't like to use the big T, small t, because we all have a different capacity to hold it. But I would say there's one type of trauma, the things that happen to you that should never have happened to you, like we're talking about sexual abuse, stuff like that. And then the other type of trauma, which is the things that should have happened to you but didn't happen to you. Your father was emotionally unavailable. You weren't attuned to, people didn't understand you. You were told that you were too much, that you were too sensitive, to stop crying, or you'll be given something to cry about. Um, you know, just so there's the child, then the thing is, children think and feel very differently to how adults think and feel. And when you do this regression work, you get to really understand how the child felt and what she was feeling and thinking in order to acquire these beliefs. It's really powerful. And actually, when people come out at the sessions, they're like, oh my God, am I messing my kid up? I'm like, it's fine. It's okay.
Yeah.
You're giving them the greatest gift you could be giving them by just doing this work. It's okay. So a child, as a human species, we are pretty useless without our caregivers, right? We need our caregivers, our parents, for many, many, many years, unlike other species. We are totally dependent on them, and we are helpless. And so when a child feels alone, when a child doesn't feel attuned to, it's very, very scary, and it feels like death to a child. And this being alone with your feelings and nobody attuning to you and just feeling, it does feel very scary. And here's where the imprints are laid down. A child has to conclude something because it has to adapt for it never to happen again. I must never trust myself. I was an example I often use is one of my clients. She regressed back to cleaning the windows with kitchen roll, thinking, oh, I'm helping my mommy to cleaning the windows with water and kitchen roll. And the mum comes in and screams and shouts at her. She'd had them professionally cleaned 2 days ago, and here's her little girl just making a mess of the windows. And so in that moment of cognitive dissonance, the child goes, I must never trust myself again. So she just stopped trusting herself. She stopped trusting her intuition because she felt rejected, unlovable, unlikable. So all of these layers of beliefs as well. But that's how easy a child can stop trusting the intuition. Then we shut off from source. And then recipe for anxiety.
And I think you touched on something really important. It's like people are afraid, and I know this is me, of going, my child is going to have some sort of trauma. And I think just by being aware of your actions and how children perceive them, that's awareness. I know that my child is going to have to go see a psychologist for something that I've done, and I probably didn't even know I did it. They've just interpreted it a particular way. So I think it's just taking the pressure off yourself too, and just go, you can't control the experience someone's going to have or the conclusion someone's going to take about an action that you're going to take. So it's like being aware that your actions have an impact specifically on children and the way they interpret it, but also not kicking yourself and being really cautious about what you do around them, because you're not going to control what they take of that, remembering it as well.
No, and we're very different parents to the parents we had. We apologize. I don't think I was ever apologized to. It just wasn't done, was it? And, I hope my children go and see a therapist. I'm going to encourage them to go and go, oh, that feeling, why don't you just go and let's have a look at that and transform that, because I want them to be the most fulfilled version of themselves. And I think that's the difference. It just wasn't done back in the day. And so I'm excited for the next generation, actually, because they're not going to have to wait till they're 40 years old to wake up and transform all the crap they're carrying from childhood. They've got us to encourage them to go and have a session with a practitioner. And, if you want to do this, let's make it happen.
And so for the women listening who are experiencing symptoms of PMDD and they're feeling a little bit hopeless or stuck, what would you say is a really actionable step that they could do in the next 24 to 48 hours to help get them unstuck?
Well, I think the first thing is to learn about your cycle and read. There's loads of books out there, like I'm struggling to find one. Is it Wild Power? That's one, Wild Power. A book like that will teach you about your cycle. And I know lots of women are like, I don't know if this is perimenopause or PMDD or
Yeah.
if you have a diagnosis. It doesn't matter. Like your feelings are the most real thing that you have. We don't need a diagnosis. You validate you and you want to transform that stuff. And the perimenopause is the same stuff. It's a calling. It's a calling to wake up to your worth and power. Christiane Northrup's book, it's incredible, massive. Dr. Christiane Northrup, that's all about women's cycles and women's power and women's health. So first of all, learning about your cycle and starting to really understand your needs and starting to honor them and realize that you live in a society that's been, going against this, not honoring it. And if, you've got to wake up and do it because no one's going to do it for you. And,
100.
when you're feeling these feelings, rather than judge yourself and reject yourself, just, put your hand on your heart and breathe love into, it's unconditional love. I love myself for feeling whatever you're feeling, we're not training circus animals, it's like people are scared of doing that because it's like they think, oh, well, I'm just reinforcing bad behavior. No, we're not training circus animals. It's, we've got to bring unconditional love to the feeling because there's, your nervous system is activated believing that you're in danger here. There's something from your past that is making you subconsciously believe that you are in danger, and it's affecting all your physiology and bringing up all these horrible symptoms.
I love what you shared about that your feelings are the most real thing you have. And I think that's like a mic drop moment. I think if a lot of women believed that, then a lot of transformations would occur simply from that. And so thank you so much, Chloe, for your time today. I've had a wonderful time learning more about PMDD and just an incredible work that you do and the transformations that come from doing the deeper work with beliefs. I think there's more and more people, as you mentioned, who are waking up to this and being open to this form, these modalities of treatment for these sort of symptoms. And so if someone is keen to learn more about the incredible work that you do, where can they find you?
Well, go to my website, which is Wounds Income. There's so much information on there about your cycle and what happens with the shift of hormones. And there's a masterclass. This is going out in it's January now as you're listening to this. So there'll be a masterclass now for you to download called Emotional Freedom Masterclass. And there'll be an inner child meditation there. And if you're ready to just get started now, you don't want to waste another cycle of this craziness that you're experiencing, then go ahead and book a 15-minute call with me, a 15-minute discovery call. It's free. You'll already start to feel better, being understood, and have me really help you map out your healing journey and help you understand the symptoms that you're experiencing. It's really validating to start getting to the root of all of this.
Amen to that. And I look forward to listening to those masterclasses myself. Thank you so much, Chloe, for your time today. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Bless you. It's such an honor to be here with you.
Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode. I hope this was helpful. If you thought of someone while listening to this podcast, I would be so grateful if you could share this episode with them. While you're doing that, please also take a moment to leave a review on the podcast if you haven't yet already. It takes less than a minute and it means so much to me and helps this podcast to reach more people just like you. Thank you so much for that, and I'll see you in the next episode. In the meantime, go out and achieve every dream you have, because actually, you can.